Buongiorno a tutti, benvenuti a un altro appuntamento con Studios Lounge. Siamo qua con il nostro direttore artistico sempre presente, Maximilian Lowe.
Benvenuti, grazie.
E con una parte fondamentale di un film in concorso, ovvero The Art of Love. Siamo qui con il regista, Philip Weibel, e con la fantastica protagonista, Alexandra GilbrEAth.
Welcome to Ferrara.
Welcome to Ferrara.
Thank you.
How are you? Do you like Ferrara?
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah, we're very happy to be here, aren't we?
The
Very
first
happy.
time in Ferrara, yeah?
First time?
Yeah, absolutely. It's beautiful.
So now I'll speak in Italian for our audience,
Sure.
and Max
I'll
will
be the
translate for
translator.
you.
Yay.
Okay, very good.
Perfect.
Allora Philip, tu oltre a essere il regista hai anche scritto la sceneggiatura. E la mia curiosità, la prima curiosità è come ti è venuta quest'idea, che è abbastanza originale, direi.
Okay, did you not? Or you?
I got it.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
you got it. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
We speak
Oh,
Italian.
all right.
He speaks a little bit of
A
Italian.
little
A
bit.
little bit, but I got the question. Well, okay, for a living I do like advertising work and corporate work, and I was doing work in London like 4 or 5 years ago. And it was raining all the time, and we had down days, and I was sitting in a cafe, and at the same time I was planning to do a documentary about influencers. And on that same day I read in the magazine or in the newspaper that the UK created a minister to fight loneliness, because apparently like 20% of all people feel lonely. So I was investigating that and finally turned my documentary idea into a feature film, and this is what happened with Art of Love.
Okay, thank you.
Infatti il film non parla tanto di sex toys, ma proprio di solitudine, no? E del bisogno di colmare questa solitudine.
The film does not talk about sex toys, but it's the willingness of fulfill like a loneliness, and it's a very deep subject, obviously.
Mhm.
E ora se posso farei una domanda ad Alexandra.
Okay, question from Alexandra.
Hello.
Hello! Lei sa, gliel'ho già detto, ha fatto un'interpretazione straordinaria in questo film. E quindi vorrei che mettesse a conoscenza anche il nostro pubblico del percorso che ha fatto per questo personaggio. Come hai lavorato a questo personaggio? Molto differente da te.
So you were wonderful in this role, and we would like to ask you, so the public knows, what was your procedure or your method to approach this character that is very different from you in real life?
Well, that's a question. When I read the script, I couldn't believe that this Swiss filmmaker had written a role and so understood what it's like to feel like a 50-something-year-old English woman. I thought, are you there with me? So when I first read the script, I didn't see the sex toys. It's weird. The first thing I thought of when I read the script for the first time was this relationship between, this weird friendship between this sort of rather sad 50-something-year-old woman and this young influencer. And we started filming August 2021, so the world was we'd just been through our first lockdown, and we started to film in August in Zurich, and then we had roughly about 10 months
10
or
months, yeah.
8, 9 before we then picked it up again. And I thought to myself, I had a very clear objective, that the only thing that Eva Parker wants is to raise a small amount of money to take her husband away on a cruise to save her marriage. It was that simple.
Mm-hmm.
So that one tiny objective informed every decision I made, every scene that I began. That was at the forefront of my mind. So even though there was a huge gap and the world had been through this enormous experience, this once-in-a-century pandemic, every time that we came back to pick little details up again, I kind of knew where I was. That's all I wanted. And then eventually, as the piece progresses, you realize that she's moving on to something else, but you have to go through that process. So it was very clear, it was very simple. Every minute of every day I thought, there's one thing I want, and that's just to raise a small amount of money to save my marriage. And then I went on the sex toy adventure. And the rest is history. Yeah.
Thank you.
Philip, hai scelto tu personalmente tutti i sex toys
Did you
presenti nel film?
Did you personally choose all the sex toys in the movie?
No, not really. Well, it's quite creative actually.
Very creative.
What there is in the market, and
Some of them had to be explained to me.
yeah,
There was one when we were shooting in the sex toy factory.
Yeah,
I thought,
exactly.
what do you do with that?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm so square.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was as Alexandra said. I mean, the whole film is not really about the sex toys. I thought it's a nice starting point because it's just yeah, it's a nice starting point to start the story, and it's a little bit exaggerated, you know, and it's a bit freaky, and you know, and then we had, of course, a set dresser and a prop designer, and then we had creative people working on those toys. And if you watch the film, you see that we have some science fiction elements in it too. Yeah, so it's, you know, to answer your question, it wasn't me personally designing the toys. And I didn't test them all as well. So,
Okay.
yeah.
We don't judge. We don't judge.
Mi sposterei un attimo di argomento, anche perché non voglio rivelare troppo del film.
Yeah, I'm gonna just slightly change the subject just because we don't want to reveal and spoil too much of the movie.
Allora, il Ferrara Film Festival, appunto, è pieno di giovani, dà molto spazio a giovani, come potete vedere qui intorno. Che consiglio dareste ai giovani artisti di oggi? Ai giovani attori, forse, alle giovani attrici e attori più in generale?
Okay, so a question for both of you. I suppose so, as you are living the Ferrara Film Festival, which is surrounded by young people, as you can see in the studio, so what suggestion would you do as, you know, as an actress and then as a director to a young folk, young, you know, person that wants to take on this career?
Good question. You go ahead. You go
Well,
ahead.
I remember when I've always wanted to be an actor since I was 4. And I remember when I was about 8 or 9, my mother saying to me, I'll never stop you doing what you want to do, because I would hate if you got to 40 and you look at me and say, if only you'd let me do what I wanted to do. So I think you have to keep going, never leave the table. So a wonderful actor once said to me when I wasn't working, he said, if you walk away from the table, that's it, you're done. Stay at the table. But I also think it's important to live your life. You know, I am a mother, I have children, so that if you are, never stop being who you are. Because then you bring who you are to your work. Your work is full up of you. So, you know, I don't know, it's different for filmmakers, for men, but for an actress, sometimes you necessarily have to put everything on hold because you have to be available the whole time. No, that's not right. You keep going until you can't feed yourself.
Good.
That's a tough statement.
What,
That's true.
keep going
Yeah,
into
it's
it?
true,
Well,
yeah.
I don't know. I don't think I subscribe to follow your dream. I think that's a bit sentimental. I think you still have to be practical at it, but just don't stop. What do you reckon?
Well, as a writer and director, I would say you really have to say something. I mean, you know, with Art of Love, I was really in this topic of loneliness for various reasons, and eventually I decided to tell that story. And I also think you have to be true to yourself. You know, as a filmmaker, you just observe. I walk the streets, I wait for the tram or for the train, and I observe. And sometimes I just see things, and I think I want to turn this into a story. So it's very close to life in a way, you know. It's very natural. It's a very natural process. And in terms of advice, I would just say, you know, stay on the table. That's really, really important. I mean, with Art of Love as well, I mean, we had to push it over like 3 times, hanging there. I had sleepless nights. I had investors breathing down my neck. It was really kind of also terrible. We have to say that sometimes it's really terrible. So just don't leave the table and fight for your thing. And And if you're a filmmaker, you hear a lot of things. You know, you have like distributors, you have like journalists, and they all think they have to tell you what they see and judge your work. And you have to hang in there and just be strong, because they destroy you sometimes in a way, you know, and sometimes they lift you up, and you just have to stay on your path. Maybe I would say follow your dream, follow your intuition, I'd say, you know, and we had it in that film too. I mean, it's a very thin line you're going to see, you know, it could have gone wrong. But we stayed on the path, and I always was insisting on, let's do this comedy drama thing and find this line, although everybody told me, oh, this is very dangerous, don't mix drama with comedy. But we just did it. So follow your intuition, follow your guts, hang in there, you know. Don't let other people judge you all the time or destroy you if judgment is really tough.
Thank you.
Thank
A lot of people give up, you know, when they have, I don't know, people judging their work, or so you hang in there, you know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's an important message, both, perché è un messaggio importante, perché è sempre stato così, ma oggi siamo costantemente riempiti da diversi stimoli, da molto giudizio, e entriamo spesso in paragone, ci mettiamo in paragone anche tramite i social, ma non solo, con le altre persone, con gli altri attori, con gli altri registi. E invece è importante ricordarsi, sia come attori ma anche come giovani normali, come persone normali, ricordarsi di seguire le proprie intuizioni, il proprio io e portarlo avanti. Quindi thank you so much, grazie del messaggio, perché è molto importante.
Basically, yeah, but it's especially because of social media, it's much easier now to get judged, and you know, because we are oversharing, and you know, that could create a big that creates a big problem. So it's easier in one way, but it's more difficult in another way, because, you know, if you feel the pressure, you can give up easier.
I also think, you know, we are in the world of a culture that can be cancelled, you know that, and I don't understand that, because when I was younger, people, playwrights, novelists, I see them as the shamans of the village. You know, they shine a light in the world on a problem. It's not their job to solve the problem. It's just their job to tell a story and go, this is what's happening here. So I think maybe I'm from the generation where that was thrilling, because you didn't have to solve it. You just had to put it out there and let people deal with it. Whereas what concerns me is that potentially we are, with our social media and cancel culture, we are living in a world where if you can say something, you are at risk of being reduced, finished. And for me, that's not what culture. We are in the business of telling stories, so in theory we are pushing the boundaries of our civilized world by telling stories that we've been doing for millennia. You know, the ancient Greeks were telling stories. And I hate the idea that playwrights, screenwriters, novelists, songwriters have an idea of something that is influenced by the world that we're living in now, and because it might not be the right thing to say, it's done, you're cancelled, overdone. Whereas I remember there was a play we have, it's a wonderful play by Edward Bond, an English playwright, called Saved. And there is a scene where this guy, there is a pram, and it's a stoning of a baby is in the pram. You never get to see it. It is so horrific. But the point is that I'm of the generation that watched it and went, wow, that's awful. Whereas now, that playwright might not be able to write the scene like that. So what we must do as creators is guard against having an idea and not having the courage to follow it through, because we're frightened of the 24-hour immediate, are you kidding? No way, done. And I have no truck with that. I think we must, it's essential, it's what we're paid to do, shine a light on something, be the shamans of the village, and try not to solve issues. We mustn't solve them. It's like, we worked on this wonderful piece of film that Phil had written, and it's not about sex toys, it's not about that, that's all the other stuff. the real story is about two people who would never in a million years be together. They would never be friends, but they find a common ground and they become friends. Real, meaningful. They find it's a very meaningful friendship, and I don't know. I've got, I don't know, cancel culture just.
I think it's going to turn around eventually. You know, it's cycles. That's what I personally believe.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Because otherwise
hope so.
people won't take risks.
Yeah, it's like we're censoring ourselves.
What's the point?
Yeah, but Alex, I mean, we also
home.
have to say, I mean, because I had a lot of feedbacks regarding that script. So if you watch the film, you know, as I said, it's sometimes the thin line, and also got a lot of feedback because we have like we're living in a very complex time. We have like diversity discussions, we have LGBTQ discussions which have to happen. They are very important. Yeah. But as a filmmaker, you're constantly under observation regarding those things. Yeah. And I know like cancel culture, but also I think you have to stick to an idea and be true to that, and not just, I mean, a lot of filmmakers nowadays, that's maybe an advice too, which comes from the bottom of my heart, don't just follow trends, you know. So I have a lot of friends that, right now it's really cool to make a film with minorities, whatever it is, or just, you know, so they write a script for that, but it's not coming from their heart. They wanted to tell another story. So in addition to like dealing with the cancel culture, it's also dealing with trends and what festivals like and what journalists like. So you have to, you know, stick to your plan and to your observations. I think that's really important because otherwise you're just lost in the stream of opinions, media, and this changes all the time. I mean, when we started 2019 with that film, we lived in a different world. Yeah, really. We really lived in a different world. Yeah, and some people you can't tell that story anymore today. It's 21 and said, I will tell that story. So, you know.
Well, I suppose it's like, you know, the dog, is the tail wagging the dog or the dog wagging the tail? You know, who are we? Yeah, are we the tail or are we the dog? Exactly. So, you know, I want to, it's...
What do you want to be?
I want to be both. No, I want to be the dog. Tell the story.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. It's wonderful.
Thank you so much.
So again, we have The Art of Love. It's tonight playing at the Ferrara Film Festival. I wish you the best of luck with your movie.
Thank you.
The most success possible. You deserve it. And thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Grazie a tutti.
Ci vediamo al prossimo appuntamento con Studios Lounge. Benvenuti a un altro incontro qui a Studios Lounge. È sempre presente il nostro direttore artistico, Maximilian Lowe, grazie di essere qui con noi.
Welcome again.
E incontriamo oggi una parte integrante del cortometraggio Tuesday. Abbiamo qui il regista Eric Champney e Randy Borruso, il protagonista. Grazie di essere qui. Thank you to be here.
Thank you.
Now I'll speak in Italian, but Maximilian will translate for you in English.
Exciting.
Exciting.
Love it.
Let's do this.
Let's do it.
So, è la prima volta a Ferrara, mi avete detto poco fa.
First time in Ferrara, you said before.
It is.
Yeah.
Cosa ne pensate di Ferrara e soprattutto del festival?
What do you think about Ferrara and your experience so far in the festival?
What I love about Ferrara is it doesn't feel like we are in a tourist trap. It doesn't feel like I'm surrounded by traveling Americans. It feels very of Italy, like a hidden jewel.
Grounded.
Yes.
Grounded. Yeah.
There are Americans, just so you know. They're less.
Actually, there's one right here. But it feels like a home.
Yeah.
It's very warm, and everyone has been absolutely beautiful to us.
Yeah. It's actually my first time in Italy at all.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So.
Welcome.
Yeah, it's very exciting. It's gorgeous here. So.
Welcome.
E io mi chiedo adesso, parlando del vostro cortometraggio,
Speaking of your short film,
perché hai deciso di raccontare questa storia?
so why did you choose specifically to choose this story?
Well, it's very interesting because Randy and I met by happenstance, and we hit it off magnificently right off the bat. And he asked, I'm a playwright also, and he asked to read one of my plays. And he took that off into the sunset with him, and then he gave me a call a couple of weeks later. He enjoyed it, and he asked me if I would come on board to write a script for him. And he had a kernel of an idea. He wanted a patriarch to be entering into the deeper stages of dementia, and how is the family dealing with that? And that's where it began. And so I decided to create the characters and then cast it, and then write the characters to the actors' strengths. And we wanted to tell a story about not necessarily focusing on film for a cause, but how does a family unite in the face of this incredible struggle, and instead of falling apart, which is what is happening. It's a very quiet disassembling of this family. How do they find each other again, and what needs to happen? And what I love about the film is it presents hope, but it doesn't answer any questions.
So basically, it was a combination of the two brains of yours, and that's great. And have you worked together before? I mean,
This was our first project together.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, and it was one of those things where it was very natural. The moment that we met, being on set, being offset, pre-production, everything just was a home run from the start. So, yeah.
Very cool, very cool.
E c'è qualche aneddoto che ci volete raccontare che è successo mentre giravate questo cortometraggio?
So what's the most memorable moment, whether good or bad, that happened during the production of this short film?
Oh, that's a...
For me, if it takes you a second,
No,
for me,
go
I know
ahead.
right off the top of my head. It was the final day of shooting, and we had to work with the sunlight. So we had to shoot in sequential order, and we had to work with the sun going down. And we get to the ending. I won't spoil anything, but it's a very big moment. And it was a moment that was felt throughout the whole cast and crew. And it was magical. Had crew coming up to me like, excellent job. I can't wait to see this done.
Oh, they were weeping
Yeah.
at their monitors.
Yeah, it
Absolutely
Wow.
weeping. It
And-
was like these grown, big, strong men just falling apart, and we knew.
Yeah, it was an incredible feeling, and I'll never forget that moment.
Thank you for sharing that.
Poi sono questi momenti che danno quella marcia in più
Yeah,
al lavoro,
these
no?
special moments that give you the extra strength to keep going and doing this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have a moment you like? Do you remember?
Oh, it sounds so easy, but all of it, because the truly magnificent aspect of this entire endeavor is that Randy and I were learning how to do all of this as we proceeded. We were making it up as we went along. And we were fortunate enough to surround ourselves with fantastic people who are very seasoned and who know what they're doing. And that allowed us the opportunity to grow and grow and grow. And by the end of it, it really felt like everyone who had come together, these old, jaded, extremely talented people, it felt like we had all stepped into a new realm together. And people were coming up to me and telling me that it was one of the most wonderful shoots that they'd ever experienced. And these are technicians who've worked on celebrity sets with celebrity actors. And to hear that, at first I thought, well, this is bananas. And my cinematographer came up to me at one point and said to me, Eric, you do realize that most film sets aren't like this. And I said, well, yes, of course, because it was a happy set. It was a wonderful set. Everyone was listening. Everyone was hearing each other and asking the right questions. Everyone was doing their job, and everyone was there for the right reason.
You got lucky.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
We did. And my cinematographer, Jackson Jarvis, he said to me, you realize that most film sets aren't like this? And I said, of course they're not. But why shouldn't they be?
Yeah, it's very true. I think people were surprised because I think going into it, they knew this was our first film, so they didn't know what to expect. And short films in particular can lend themselves to be disorganized and not everyone's getting heard, but on our set it was very different. Everyone loved being there, and it was fun, you know, being the actor, but on the production side, making sure people were taken care of, making sure everyone had everything they needed.
He learned that he is an exquisite executive producer. Absolutely, like
Thank you.
butter.
Speaking of that, last question: Are you working on something right now? What's next?
Yes.
Two
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, 2 things.
Oh wow!
Two things.
Together?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Sure. What? I mean, if you can tell.
The next thing that we're doing is called The Screens, and it's the story of a patient in a psychiatric hospital who who has an experience with a visitor whom he doesn't know. He's a stranger, with whom he might share a frightening connection.
Okay. What's the next one?
And then after
other
that,
one?
it's going to be our first feature,
Okay.
and that is called Giallo.
Oh.
Because Eric told me that he is a great fan of a great Italian director, which is
Dario Argento.
Dario Argento. There you go.
Hi, Dario.
He's gonna listen. We'll
If
send
only.
that.
If only.
Well, I mean, so basically, short film and then you jump into a feature film. Well,
That is the ambition. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
I hope we will be able to see both of them at Ferrara Film
Yeah.
Festival, edition 8 and 9, I
We
suppose.
hope so too.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
hope so too.
Yeah, the screens will shoot sometime in March, so we're hoping to have
Okay.
final cut by June-ish or
Oh.
so.
All right.
Yeah.
We're going to be in September, so all right.
Yeah,
That's and off it goes. Yeah.
yeah,
We can't wait.
Oh well, we can't wait to come back.
yeah.
Thank you so much
Grazie. Thank
for
you.
being here.
That's it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So
Thank you.
Tuesday tonight, Apollo City Park. Thank
Tuesday.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Buona giornata.